The canyon remembered everything. It remembered the wind that screamed through its jagged stone ribs. It remembered the dust that rose like ghosts when boots struck the earth. And it remembered the day the silence shattered. 12-year-old Eliza May Harper had been chasing butterflies when the world ended. Her family's wagon train had stopped at Red Hollow Canyon for water and rest. The sun was sinking low, painting the cliffs in golden fire. Her mother had laughed while hanging laundry between two wagon wheels. Her father had tipped his hat and said they would reach Silver Ridge by dawn. But dawn never came the way they expected. Men rode in from the east, faces wrapped in cloth, rifles slung across their backs, voices sharp like broken glass. They weren't strangers to cruelty. They weren't drifters looking for work, they were hunters. Eliza didn't understand what was happening at first. She thought it was another group of travelers, until her father stepped in front of her. "Run," he whispered. It was the last word she ever heard him say. She ran, through sagebrush and thorns, through dust and falling light. Her small boots slipped against the canyon rocks, and she tumbled into a narrow crevice hidden behind thorn bushes. She pressed her hand over her mouth and didn't breathe. The canyon roared. Gunshots echoed like thunder trapped between stone walls. Horses screamed. Someone shouted for mercy. Someone prayed. Then silence. Hours passed before she dared to move. When Eliza finally crawled out, the sky had turned black. Smoke drifted like sorrow. The wagons burned low and quiet. The camp was still, too still. She stood in the center of what used to be her world, and something inside her changed. She did not scream. She did not cry. She memorized. She memorized the brands on the horses the men rode. She memorized the strange silver buckle one of them wore. She memorized the scar across the leader S' left hand when he grabbed her mother S' locket. They had thought no one survived. They were wrong. The next morning, a lone rancher named Thomas Hale found her walking barefoot down the canyon road, eyes hollow but burning with something far older than her years. "Where's your family, sweetheart?" he asked gently. She looked up at him and said 4 words. "I will find those men." Thomas saw something in her that frightened him and inspired him. He took her in, not as charity but as promise. Years passed. Eliza learned to read ledgers, to listen without speaking, to watch hands instead of faces. She worked in town stores, sweeping floors, delivering packages, gathering whispers like breadcrumbs. Silver Ridge was small, but corruption ran deep beneath its polished wooden sidewalks. She heard the names eventually. Clay Whitmore, Jonah Briggs, the Ashford brothers, respected cattle investors, donors to the sheriff's office, owners of half the valley, and riders from the east. The silver buckle. Clay Whitmore, the scar on the left hand. Jonah Briggs, the brand on the horses. Ashford cattle. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears braids and carries ledgers. Eliza was 17 when she made her first move. She didn't bring a gun. She brought evidence. For 5 years she had quietly gathered information. Shipment records that didn't match cattle counts. Bank deposits larger than any legitimate ranch could explain. Land deeds signed by men who had mysteriously disappeared. The Canyon Massacre had not been random. It had been land clearing. Her family's wagon train had unknowingly settled on property Whitmore wanted. And instead of negotiating, he erased them. But greed leaves fingerprints. Eliza took her findings to someone no one expected. Abigail Turner, editor of the Silver Ridge Chronicle, a widow, a woman dismissed by powerful men as harmless. She wasn't. "You understand what this means?" Abigail asked after reading the documents. Eliza nodded. "They think I died." Abigail smiled slowly. "Then let's introduce you properly." The story broke at sunrise. Headlines screamed across town. Local cattle barons linked to missing settlers. Silver Ridge exploded. Farmers whispered. Workers questioned their employers. Old rumors resurfaced. A federal land investigator, already suspicious of irregular expansion claims, arrived within days. Whitmore tried to laugh it off. Jonah Briggs tried to threaten witnesses. The Ashford brothers tried to flee. But paper doesn't burn as easily as people. Ledger after ledger surfaced. Survivors from other accidents came forward. A stable boy remembered seeing blood on a saddle years ago. A banker admitted under pressure that deposits had been split across ghost accounts. And then Eliza walked into the courthouse. The room froze. Clay Whitmore's face turned white as canyon dust. "Impossible," he whispered. She stepped forward calmly. "You should have checked the rocks more carefully," she said. There was no shouting, no dramatic gunfight, just truth. And truth is louder than any rifle. The trial lasted weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Land theft, conspiracy, murder charges tied to multiple disappearances. The same town that once tipped hats to powerful men now refused to meet their eyes. When the verdict came down, guilty on all major counts, Silver Ridge exhaled as if it had been holding its breath for years. As the men were led away in chains, Eliza didn't smile. She simply closed her eyes and pictured Red Hollow Canyon. The wind moved differently now, not like a scream, like a sigh. Thomas Hale stood beside her outside the courthouse. "What will you do now?" he asked. Eliza looked toward the horizon where her family once dreamed of building a life. "I'm going back," she said, "not to remember what was taken, to build what they couldn't destroy." She rebuilt the Harper homestead on that very land, not out of revenge, out of resilience. And every spring, when wildflowers bloomed in the canyon, she left a silver locket hanging from a wooden fence post, a reminder that even the smallest survivor can bring giants to their knees. Not with violence, with courage. If this story moved you, if you believe one voice can change everything, if you love powerful Western survival stories filled with strength and justice, subscribe to the channel right now, because the next story might be even more unforgettable.